It's Halloween, and as Michael Myers haunts the streets, we take refuge in our homes to examine the last and ghastliest of the Gengar line. Gastly is one of the most iconic Generation 1 Pokemon. Whether it was first encountered while scaling Lavender Town's Pokemon Tower in Red, Blue, and Yellow, or in the famed Indigo League episode Tower of Terror, it packs the same playful grin surrounded by a waft of spectral smoke that has made the rest of its evolutionary line so iconic. Today we'll be examining Gastly's competitive history. Was its presence as spooky and scary as a werewolf bar mitzvah? Or did its attempts to inspire fear land more on the funny side? So happy Halloween as we ask, how good or ghastly was Gastly actually? And in this video we'll be going over these competitive formats. We won't waste time. Gastly was one of the best, most defining Little Cup Pokemon of all time. However, Little Cup was not played competitively until the Platinum metagame in Generation 4. So was Gastly simply not used until then? Not quite. There was a brief spell in the formative stages of RBY-NU where it seemed like it would have a niche thanks to its fast hypnosis, good special, and immunity to explosion and hyper beam. However, its weaknesses to the ever-present Psychic and Earthquake held it back too far. In GSC-NU, however, Gastly had a niche. It was the only legal ghost type, and as such had a valuable unique immunity to normal. This allowed it to block Pinecle's rapid spins and explosions, which was appreciated by Spike's offense teams. It was also useful for being able to safely switch in against and permanently wall the tier's mono-normal setup boosters in Swords Dance Lickitung and Curse Wigglytuff and Dunsparce. Offensively, Gastly could fire off strong Psychics and Thunders, as well as having Explosion. Despite its pitiful attack stat, it still put a significant dent in anything that didn't resist it. Of course, Gastly was quite flawed as a result of its multiple low stats. It did safely switch into a few key Pokemon, but the vast majority of the tier 2-hit KO'd or 1-hit KO'd it, limiting its capability for switching in. Being easily outsped and 1-hit KO'd by two of the best, most common offensive Pokemon in the tier, in Xatu and Dugtrio, didn't exactly help its case either. And finally, while Psychic and Thunder were strong, the lack of stab meant Gastly struggled to threaten much that wasn't weak to the moves. In essence, Gastly struggled to switch in and threaten much. However, its place in the tier was legitimate by virtue of the substantial value it offered as a ghost type. Gastly being useful in a non-Little Cup tier is a funny idea, but it did happen. Plus, fun fact, despite being a first stage evolution, it was far more viable in NU than several fully evolved Pokemon, such as Parasect, Magcargo, Ariados, Venomoth, Noctowl, and Beedrill. Gastly took Generation 3 off. Power creep had resulted in its evolution Haunter dropping to NU, ensuring there was no room for it there even if its stats hadn't become dwarfed by the tier's other staples. However, in Generation 4, the competitive player base decided they wanted to try Little Cup. Gastly quickly established itself as one of the most dangerous Pokemon around, and really took off once its main competitor Misdreavus was banned. Gastly was fast, strong, had immensely valuable immunities to fighting, ground, and normal, and possessed a deep move pool as a great complement to its two enormously powerful stab moves, including such excellent choices as Explosion and Sucker Punch. As a result, it was quite easy for Gastly to find its way on the field, and quite difficult for opponents to switch into Gastly safely. It could mix and match its many moveset and item choices to great effect. That fitting it on teams was quite a cinch. Whether it was a Choice Scarf Revenge Killer and late game cleaner, or a brutal Life Orb Wall Breaker capable of luring and destroying several common switch-ins. It could utilize Hidden Power Ground to remove Stunky, one of the few Pokemon that could tank its stabs safely. Hidden Power Fighting and Explosion were similarly useful against Munchlax, though the latter required sacrificing Gastly. And though the latter required sacrificing Gastly, it was worth it to remove the most dangerous Pokemon in the tier. Gastly could really do anything it wanted. It eased prediction with Substitute, picked off faster foes like Elekid with Sucker Punch, and even made itself even more nightmarishly uncounterable with Hypnosis, potentially letting it brute force its way through otherwise losing matchups like Bronzor. Gastly had to be careful about getting hit, given its frailty, but it was a worthwhile price to pay for one of the most destructive Pokemon in the tier. It was one of Generation 4 Little Cup's premier offensive choices, and its presence was a significant contributor to the shaping of the metagame's landscape. For much of Generation 5 Little Cup's existence, Gastly was not seen at all. While it wasn't outright bad, it really wasn't worth using over Misdreavus, who was far superior in the newly bulky Eviolite-centered metagame. The generation came and went, and Gastly went without usage. However, the tier continued to be played, leading to Misdreavus' eventual ban, and Gastly finally got its chance to shine. And it didn't just feebly attempt to recreate Misdreavus. Sure, it was still great at dissuading Mienfu's high jump kick, but it proved itself to be a genuinely great Pokemon, and did so by creating an entirely unique niche for itself. It utilized Trick to not only steal an opposing Pokemon's Eviolite for itself, but to further hinder that Pokemon by foisting its black sludge on it. This made its stabs even more threatening, and with the incredibly spammable Will-O-Wisp also in tow, Gastly spread tons of damage easily. It was an absolute nightmare to switch into. Pretty much nothing was a safe answer to its brutal blend of direct and indirect damage. Even specially defensive Shedskin Rest Scraggy, which managed the immensely difficult task of being able to answer both Gastly stabs and Will-O-Wisp, still couldn't switch into it safely because of Trick, while Will-O-Wisp kept Pawniard from being able to pursue it safely either. Since Gastly got plenty of switch-in opportunities, as well as potential healing opportunities in longer games if it elected to run Pain Split, it would consistently ruin the opponent's team. Gastly was a thoroughly late bloomer, but it carved a powerful, definitive place for itself in Generation 5 Little Cup. Despite the newfound prominence of the pursuit-happy Scarf Pawniard and a buffed knockoff, Gastly thrived in Generation 6. Its stabs were more threatening than ever. Shadow Ball was no longer resisted by steals, making it more difficult for teams to pivot around its attacks with Pokemon like Ferroseed and Magnemite, while Sludge Bomb ripped through the popular new Fairy-type walls in Spritzee and Snubbull. Sure, the prominence of Scarf Pawniard and Scarf Gothita limited Gastly from being able to tear through entire teams, but it couldn't switch in safely given how obliterated it was by hidden power fighting. With Substitute, Gastly would scout the switch in safely and thus remove its need to predict, allowing it to reliably tear through whatever switched in. Not all teams had these Scarf Trappers anyway, and Gastly would usually crush them, but this way, even if the opponent did have one, Gastly would still get at least one KO. Plus, well-built teams with Gastly could easily take advantage of the Scarf Trappers locking into those moves, allowing them to consistently force the opponent into a catch-22 situation. Gastly could also change up its moveset if it desired. Sticky Web offense teams loved the Sash variant, while Scarf was a great late-game cleaner that got the jump on Pokemon that normally outspeed it like Abra. It still mostly preferred the nearly peerless devastation it could dish out with Life Orb, but really, no matter what it did, Gastly was excellent, and once again, Gastly was an excellent, massively threatening Little Cup Pokemon. Gastly was excellent once again in Generation 7. It received an indirect buff in the form of one of its best checks, Porygon, being banned early on, and also received a direct buff in the form of Z moves. It still primarily ran Life Orb, but it loved its newfound potential to terrorize Mienfoo or Timber with Twinkle Tackle, or blast through a neutral target with Acid Downpour. Gastly was a great offensive partner for fellow special attacking monster Abra. Their pairing was referred to as Gaspra, and considered one of the most dangerous offensive combinations around, especially when paired with a Pawniard Counter Trapper, primarily Trapinch until its ban, then Diglett. This way, the Gaspra user ensured if the opposing Pawniard chose to trap one of the two, it would be trapped in return and thus be left unable to trap the second. Bizarre as it may seem, Gastly didn't even need to run Shadow Ball all the time in Generation 7, and dipped into its coverage options more than ever before. By mixing and matching Thunderbolt, Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, and Hidden Power Fighting, there was just about nothing Gastly couldn't hit. It was once again an excellent, thoroughly dangerous Little Cup Pokemon. Generation 8 arrived and left Pursuit behind in the dust. The move had simply ceased to exist. The Little Cup player base was terrified at what this would mean. For the previous 4 generations of Little Cup, Pursuit was the only way to truly, reliably handle Gastly. It would simply destroy everything otherwise. They wondered amongst themselves, how are they going to deal with it now? The answer? They didn't. Without Pursuit, Gastly absolutely crushed everything. It was ridiculously, absurdly broken, and it was banned more or less instantly as a result. It speaks to the power of Pursuit when its removal launches a great Pokemon into the most exalted of tiering placements, Little Cup Uber. Gastly had finally achieved the great Little Cup dream. And that's it. So how good was Gastly actually? Well, it actually started out with a few brief stints in NU. The RBY attempt was not so successful, but it established a genuine niche for itself in GSC. It was heavily flawed, but what would you expect? It is a first stage evolution after all, and it was still more viable than several fully evolved Pokemon, which was hilarious. Anyway, come Generation 4, Little Cup began being played competitively, and Gastly quickly established itself as one of the tier's most dangerous threats in a fast-paced metagame filled to the brim with them. New generations kept arriving, and time again, Gastly proved itself one of the greatest Little Cup Pokemon of all time. It reached its apex in the most recent generation, where the removal of Pursuit, the one thing that had barely been keeping it in check for a decade, brought it so much joy that it decided to rip through the entire tier out of happiness, prompting its near instant ban and promotion to Little Cup Ubers, alongside legends like Aipom and Scyther. Gastly is without question one of the greatest first stage Pokemon of all time. Happy Halloween, everyone. Make sure to look behind you, because even if Leatherface isn't there, Gastly might be. And as always, thanks for watching, and if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Gastly? With the removal of Pursuit, how would you nerf it so that it gets out of Little Cup Ubers? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow Makura on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.